Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the Live Your Jam podcast. This is episode 9. It's actually part 2 of the episode, Your Mind as Ally, Not a Dictator. I am Ellen McGinnis, and I am your host, and welcome. In episode 7, if you listened in on that one, you heard me talk to my son Nate about mindfulness and meditation and how those two tools specifically, how we can use them to train the mind to become our ally instead of our dictator. So instead of having our mind running around and ruling us, we can actually use it as an ally. We do need our mind, right? We need it for logic, for analysis. But there's plenty of times when we actually don't need it and it gets in the way. That episode was really fun to do, and I really wanted to help teens, and that's why I had my son Nate on, because the earlier you get started on understanding how your thoughts work, the better. And I do see, and I recall from my own youth that, I thought I was my thoughts. So if I had a bad thought, I thought I was a bad person. If I had looping thoughts, I wanted them to stop and didn't know how. So I felt that episode, it was very short, only like 17 minutes. I thought it was perfect for people getting started on this path. After that episode, a number of people reached out to me on how helpful the segment was, which I always appreciate when the content is resonating. And I already knew that I wanted to share more. Much of what I've written about in blogs and in my book, I've written on this subject because, again, if we're trying to live our jam or trying to live from the inside out, there are some obstacles and things that can get in our way. We can listen to our intuition, but if we're ruminating all the time, you really can't hear intuition over mental noise. I've talked about that. I truly believe that we are all souls having a human experience. So anything that supports this human experience matters. That's the hard part. We're trying to combine the two, right? And so, meaning the soul and the physical human experience. That means we have to tend to our mind, our thoughts, our ego, and our inner world. And while keeping this incredible container, this body that we have clean and strong. And I talked about that in episode 8 with Danny Matranga. So please listen to that. But today in episode 9 of this little mindfulness, if you will, series, we're going to go deeper. We're going to go beneath the mind. And I didn't talk about it again in episode 7, but I'm really going to dig in now on the 2 books that actually changed my life and helped me understand my thoughts and how to get rid of, you hear people say that stinking thinking, that stuff that's getting in my way. The 2 books that really did it for me, the first one was Michael Singer's The Untethered Soul. And I'm going to talk about that at great length in this podcast. And the other one was Eckhart Tolle's The Power of Now. And I'm sure you're probably more familiar with Eckhart than you, Michael Singer. I think they're both on Oprah, but Eckhart's all over. I'm just going to give this caveat about his stuff. I really like The Power of Now and A New Earth. I find his voice and how calm he is difficult to sit with. I get impatient, and I actually got one of the books on audiobook and I couldn't even get through it. I say this because I think we all have preferences and what kind of resonates with us. His work resonates, but when I see him in person, or even some of his writing didn't for me. And 2 people that reached out to me of the maybe 8 or so that did on the episode said to me, I can't get into Tolle. And I'm like, oh, I actually relate to that. There's nothing wrong with that. But just my point is keep going and find stuff that does resonate, because there's plenty out there. But I'm going to compare these 2 books and talk about how we can use them in this episode. Having said that, we're going to go into the heart, into emotional energy. And that's in Tolle's concept of the pain body. That stored emotional residue gets activated and try to run our lives. And I think when I explain this, everybody's gonna be like, yep. And then Singer's teaching is really about how to release old emotions by relaxing, staying open, and allowing the energy to move through the heart. So if episode 7 was the introduction, consider episode 9 here the initiation. I'm just going to recap episode 7. Also, I want to say I have not enjoyed podcasts where I just talk, so bear with me. I like to be interviewed. I like the energy from that, but I'm going to try it this time. It's holiday time, and I have the time to do this, and so just going to be me talking this time. So here's a recap of episode 7, the episode that Nate and I did, because I think we need to build on these basics, and if you didn't listen to that, it's fine. Here, I'm going to tell you what it was about. Okay, the first organizing principle is you are not your thoughts. You are the awareness noticing your thoughts. That's huge, right? So the thought that you have in your head is not you. Often it's even thoughts from the collective consciousness. You're just the witness to your thoughts. And when you find yourself caught up in your thoughts, mindfulness can help bring you back to the present moment. Use the example of cooking. If you're cooking, just start focusing on what you're cooking. I mean, Tolle talks about coming back to breath, that mindfulness always brings you back to the present moment. There's no pain there. Meditation is important because it helps train your mind so you can hear your intuition. I just meditated this morning. I meditate daily. And when a thought pops up, I'm just watching it, letting it go like a cloud go by. And then I go back to my breath, or I go back to whatever it is it's my breath that I'm focusing on. Sometimes it's nothing that I'm focusing on in meditation. So meditation helps train your mind. So when, it's going nuts, you have the techniques and tools to step away from the thoughts and start to calm yourself. And actually, you can get to a point where you have no thoughts. Crazy, I know. I don't know if any of you have ever given up sugar. Super not fun. But when you get to a place where after a few days or so, you'll quit having sugar cravings. You'll quit having any cravings, as a matter of fact. And it's actually amazing. But it takes a bit to get there. It's the same thing with meditation. You have to kind of train your mind and practice it. I recommend 10 minutes a day to start. Otherwise, but you can do more. But 10 minutes was enough for me in the beginning. So creating space from our thoughts is where freedom comes in. You'll notice when you're in a thought, you're kind of wrapped around it. And when you start to step behind it and just notice it, watch the cloud patterns go by, you'll automatically feel freer, not as clung to it, not as in it. That's the place that we want to start to hang out in. So now the natural question becomes, okay, if I'm not my thoughts, then what is all this emotion inside of me? Why does my chest tighten? Why do I get triggered? And why do these old patterns keep repeating? So this episode is going to answer all of that. I'm going to attempt to, at least. So your emotional center is your heart. We know this, right? We have 3 centers of intelligence: our head, our heart, and our gut. I think intuition can show up in all of those, but when intuition does show up, it shows up quicker than the logical mind can process, or even we kind of even aware of the feeling. So, but the heart is the true emotional center. And we tend to think of the heart as sometimes as poetic or symbolic, but energetically, it really kind of is the center of everything. And when the heart is open, we've all had this feeling before. We feel lightness, connection, clarity, even our intuition. We feel ease. And when it's closed, we feel heaviness, tightness, overwhelm, defensiveness, and disconnection. It's hard. You can actually literally feel the tightening of it. And the truth is that most of us have been living with a partially closed heart for years. It's not because we're doing anything wrong. It's because life is emotional and things happen. People hurt us. We get disappointed. We suppress. We push down. We distract ourselves. Some people numb out. There's lots of different ways to kind of protect ourselves from that disappointment. And every time your heart contracts around pain, that energy stays there. Yeah, so that's like a core premise of Singer's idea, is that pain isn't the problem, it's our resistance to it. So like pain is inevitable, but it's our resistance to it that is the problem. So when we resist, we close. When we close, that energy gets stuck. And when the energy gets stuck, we repeat patterns. I always say to people, when they're like, this keeps happening, I'm like, it's your soul's giving you the opportunity to heal it, right? And so that's why we get patterns. It's dissonance in our energetic field. And then when the pattern comes up, it's giving us an opportunity to heal it. So this is why patterns repeat. This is emotional energy that gets stuck. And then we get into this repetition loop. So that's why your heart can feel kind of heavy and tight with certain memories. It's like, oh, I don't want to think about that, right? So that's where Singer's work is. His work is to create space from our thoughts and then recognize that we're kind of creating a problem with staying away from the pain. It's our resistance to it. And where Tolle comes in there, where he picks up, it's really wonderful. He calls it the pain body. And then that really changed everything for me. The pain body is actually that emotional residue of our past, every hurt, every disappointment, every fear. Think of a bag and it all just gets filled up. That's all stored in the energetic body, in the body, and in the heart. And when something in the present moment resembles that pain, the pain body wakes up and says, "Oh, I know this. This is familiar. Let me take over now." So I think we see this in certain people. We feel it in ourselves. It's like, why does this feel so familiar? And the pain body feeds on drama, conflict, rumination, negative thinking, and emotional reactivity. So it's a little bit like you are what you eat. Like if you eat fast food a lot, you're going to want fast food. If you think about the resistance and the pain body, it's all these kind of energetic, stored, painful emotions. Then if you focus on that and you keep feeding it, that's going to be a reality. I don't know. We've all seen people where it's like, oh gosh, they just always have this, they think that's about them and they have this painful reaction. It wasn't. And so when you suddenly feel triggered or overly emotional, it's usually not you. It's your pain body trying to recreate the emotional intensity it's addicted to. I like this concept so much because it, again, is not you. So many people in therapy, there's this concept of like the reality doesn't match the tape. The tape's the story we keep playing. The pain body is the emotional pain that we keep playing out in our lives. And I like the idea that it's not really us. It's just the emotional intensity that we become focused on and almost, the pain body gets addicted to. So here's the key to getting out of the pain body. It cannot survive in presence. When you notice it, really notice it without acting on it, feeding it, or narrating a story around it, it goes away. It's just the same feeling or experience of when you don't feed your thoughts. You start to witness them, you'll create space. These things dissolve. So there's real power in this. We notice the pain body instead of saying, oh gosh, here's this person, they're going to betray me again or screw me again like the last person, or I can't trust this person because the last person did that. The awareness is like the sun coming in. It kind of neutralizes the pain body's charge. And this is why mindfulness matters and why meditation matters. These aren't hobbies. They're actually medicine to dissolve the pain body and these kind of emotional loops that we can get into. I see these things as a way to create clarity and coherence and love. So I don't know why trauma happens to people, but we all have it. Micro traumas, major traumas. They need to be processed, but they're opportunities to heal. And the same with these thinking and thoughts. It's like they're opportunities to heal. And when you take a look at it and process it, you can begin to dissolve it. Super important. So, back to Singer, he teaches that every emotion is energy, and energy wants to move through the body naturally like a wave. So I always tell people, like, if you're going to shove it down, it's going to get stuck. Sorry. And again, I'm not saying it has to be dealt with immediately. I wouldn't sit on things for years. Sometimes we need to work through a process. But the moment we resist an emotion, tighten against it, control it, suppress it, the energy gets trapped in the heart. I'm going to share a personal experience, but I've had times where my heart just aches. It hurts so much replaying the story. So instead of releasing the emotional energy, it recycles. Instead of healing, it loops. So relationships get in loops. You'll see that people get stuck. So instead of clearing out, it becomes a part of our identity. I'm somebody who can't trust people. I'm not saying that personally about myself. I'm just saying that becomes part of the ego's identity. Singer's entire philosophy could be, in my opinion, summarized in one sentence. It's just relax and release. Stay open and let the energy move. So I've done this, and this is exactly what I've done to heal my own dark night of the soul, to use a Jungian term. I stopped replaying my thoughts. I stopped tightening around the pain. I let the waves of emotion move through. I trusted the process, even when it's uncomfortable. I do that now. I'm like, oh, I'm really afraid. I am really afraid. And I got to face this fear head on and then begin to release it. Around my kids, I get afraid about stuff. It's so powerful. And so sometimes that means we're going to cry, sometimes that we're going to be shaking. Sometimes it means sitting quietly and feeling the heaviness rise and fall. That's a trip, watching it kind of go up and down. But when I've hung in there and stayed open, my heart is always softened and I can feel the energetic release and I can feel it move out and I begin to feel more free. It does not weigh me down. And I can actually replay the same story and see it from a place of compassion and love. It's so freeing. Singer calls that voice, that's talking constantly, the inner roommate. And it's kind of a good metaphor, right? Like if you're the constant chatter, oh, I'm not good at this, or I got to, sometimes it's good. Like I say to my clients, like I was up all night and I redid this proposal, or I had this idea. There's times when that churn is good, or when you're brushing your teeth and it reminds you, oh my God, I got to call the doctor about this or the dentist. Those aren't bad things. But when you're constantly ruminating and it's getting in the way of you living your life and you're replaying out the pain body and feeding it, then we really have to practice, noticing that inner roommate. So, like I said, you're not that voice, you're just the awareness behind it. That emotional energy and pain will build up when we start to resist or cling. And the freedom comes when you allow life to flow through you without grasping or rejecting it. So that's a tricky business. But when you start to grasp or reject, that's when we kind of start to get trapped. So what you want to do is, the heart is this energy center. It can open and close. So we don't want it to close that much. And we shouldn't resist the fear, the anger, the attachment, the energy that contracts. You can feel it tighten. When we surrender, it's like, I'm noticing I'm clinging on something right now, and I'm so afraid. And I can take a step back and not let the thoughts that kind of feed that go out of control. I begin to surrender and say, I am afraid. And that's okay. It's okay to be afraid, right? And then I'm surrendering, and that's what spiritual growth is really all about. I don't have control over this, or I am angry. And then you can explore it. And I always tell people, if you keep having repeating thoughts and patterns, those can be explored in therapy. I'm not saying that. I'm just at the point now in my life, the patterns that come in, the thoughts that come in a lot are recipes. I'm like, okay, this is a pretty good place. I don't think I need to process this. The thoughts come in around, these creative ideas, which I love, often sometimes in the form of recipes. But you'll notice if you're having to repeat the same fears and thoughts, you might need to go to therapy or journal or do a number of different things to kind of process it further. But the idea would be eventually not to resist it and to surrender to it. In that way, and you're surrendering, you're not trying to control your life. You're just aligning with it. And it becomes your teacher and your adversary. Because if you are afraid of something, you can be like, okay, that's interesting. I don't have to live in the fear. I need to look at it and explore it. I always say, like, freedom is, for me, is when I stop finally trying to change those outer circumstances, and instead I'm changing my relationship to them, right? And that's super powerful. And then your life can really unfold deeply without attachment. None of this, I'm going to say, means that life still won't be hard. But if we're talking about living a life from the inside out, being trapped in our mind can prevent us from doing that, because we're still trying to control our life versus move with it. And we're still missing opportunities to heal. So if I think of the journey and there's obstacles on the way, there's freedom beyond fear. So I'm just going to talk a little bit about Tole and the pain body, because I think what I learned is there's some really good, easy signs to know when your body is taking the wheel here. So that means when you're Meaning like when you're really feeding the pain body, you'll notice that perhaps the reaction you're having is bigger than the situation. You definitely will feel chest tightening, or you feel emotional, like kind of pressure, I guess is a good way to describe it. Your mind will begin narrating a story about a blame or identity. I'll notice I'm like, oh, well, here goes my mind telling me, narrating something about why I was right or wrong, or wants to keep me in this identity. I'll feel old pain resurfacing. I'll go back to another memory where I felt the exact same way. It's familiar, patterned, heavy. And the other thing is you feel justified in your anger, sadness, or withdrawal. Again, not a bad person if you do this. That's not what it's about. But these are telltale signs. So when you experience these things, just remember the pain body is not you. It's unprocessed energy asking to be seen. Your job is simply to notice it. That's all. So if you see if you feel your chest tightening, you can say to yourself, my pain body's awake. And then stop feeding the story. Don't replay the memory. Don't narrate. Don't analyze. Bring awareness to the heart, not the mind. And you'll notice and start breathing in from the heart. Your shoulders are going to relax. Your chest, will relax, and let the energy come through. And it might feel uncomfortable. And you can just say to yourself, I'm safe. I'm safe. And then what I've noticed is the emotion always peaks and then it falls. Always. I can't even tell you. I've been in situations and I'm like, this is so uncomfortable. And I'll just remind myself, wait 20 minutes. And it dissipates. And it doesn't mean that I bypass it, but 20 minutes later, when I'm not in the feeding the pain body, I can be like, what went on for me there? And I'm like, oh, I really felt unloved in that moment, or unconsidered, or that scared me. I felt invisible, whatever it is. So emotions are waves. I mean, they come and go. So I want to just share a personal story from my life. When I was going through a really difficult time in my marriage, I would walk in nature and with my dog. We lived in Europe at the time. In Switzerland, there's forests everywhere, thank God. Just right outside your door, there's a vault and you can go out and walk. And I had a dog and I did that all the time. I'm very active. And so I'd go out in nature, walking along with the dog, and I would replay everything, every word, every tone, every moment of hurt. And I realized I'm ruining my walks. I caught myself and I said to myself, okay, this is Tolia's pain body. This is old energy. Let it move. So I stopped playing out the story. Oftentimes I'd scream. I had Chester was pretty good about it, but I would just let out a rah, and try to move the energy out. And I'd put my hand on my chest and I would feel this wave of sadness come up so strong at first. And then it would just start to fall away. And then I would just put my mind on the nature that was with me. And I felt lighter, clearer, more like myself. And that conversation, or that painful conversation I had with my now ex-husband, it didn't control me anymore. It was presence. I was healing. I was able to look at things and then work through them, as opposed to being in it all the time. And it doesn't mean I didn't have to work through it. I just didn't allow it to rob every moment of my day. I encourage you all to read these books, or at least get snippets of them, or anything that resonates for you on meditation and mindfulness and really being able to look at your thoughts. You can heal your heart, and you can dissolve your pain body, and you can release years of emotional energy. And in doing so, you're going to reclaim your power. The past does not own you. The moment you choose to become a witness, you become free. So I hope this resonated for people. Thank you for being here. Thank you for doing deeper work. If you want more practices, meditation, or guidance, reach out to me. I've got stuff on my website. Get the cliff notes for these 2 books. Get the audiobooks. Do whatever you want. But you can't live your jam, everyone, if your heart is carrying what your mind keeps replaying. So there's freedom in awareness. There's peace, so much peace and presence. There's so much peace in coming back to yourself. The truth is in your heart always. And I'll see you in the next episode. And I hope you know that stillness is a bridge, and meditation and mindfulness will create the space between reaction and awareness. So, best to all of you, and blessings and light. Until next time.